Welcome back to Next Act Ninjas, the #1 podcast for mastering your lifestyle longevity. I'm your host, Rachael Van Pelt, and today I want to talk about achieving your financial freedom number. You may also know it as your financial independence, or FI number, or your economic freedom number. Regardless of what you call it, do you know your number? The number you need to leave your job when you want and have enough money to live the lifestyle you want thereafter. We used to just ask, how much do I need to have saved for retirement? But now that traditional retirement has been flipped on its head, that framing seems overly simplistic, doesn't it? Some people want to retire early. Some people want to embark on an encore career. Still others plan to work well into their 70s. Some will have had steady employment and saved consistently for decades, while others may have had gaps to care for kids or aging parents or even start a business. If you're just planning to work until 67 and save 10% of every paycheck until you get there, then that could be the end of discussion, right? You've set up your automatic deductions from your paycheck every month. It's going into a 401k. You set it and forget it, and you just hope that it grows enough to meet your needs when the time comes. Well, I think that's a great start. You know it's not likely going to be sufficient, don't you? But how much do you really need? If you ask your financial planner or you search the internet for how much you need to retire, you are going to get a variety of answers. There are the Susie Ormans of the world who will say you need to save at least $5 million and should work until you're 70. And then there are those saying you could get by with as little as, say, $750,000, as long as your home's paid off and you have other income streams. Then there's the financial independence retire early or FIRE crowd, where you have people striving for so-called retirement in their 30s. Now, I would argue that this isn't retirement in the traditional sense of the word. When you dig into those FIRE stories, you find the person that supposedly retired at age 35 is managing multiple rental properties or has other side hustles that cash flow. And this is still a form of work, isn't it? They aren't truly retired, but they have achieved some sort of work freedom, right? Which I think is great. In many cases, these people are actually being more productive members of society than if they had stayed in their original 9-to-5 job. And the same is true for someone who does this at age 55 or age 65. So it begs the question, how do you define retirement? What does financial freedom mean to you? Do you expect a complete life of leisure, skiing all winter, or playing golf all summer? Are you willing to keep working in some capacity as long as you're not grinding in your 9-to-5? I know some people who are still putting in 70+ hour work weeks in their 60s who would feel completely free if they just got down to 20 hours per week. And there are others who don't want to work another day in their life. Some just want time freedom. Others want freedom to travel or play to their heart's content. I think it's important to know what your expectations are before you put a number on it. What would make you feel most free? Drop your answer in the comments. I would love to know where people land. Do you want the freedom to not work except when you feel like it? Do you want freedom to travel or buy your dream vacation property? Do you want the freedom to spoil your kids or grandkids rotten, to become a philanthropist or leave a family legacy? Freedom looks different for everyone, so I challenge you to get clear on what it looks like for you. And don't be afraid to dream big. The reason this is important is twofold. First, the clarity will help you point your compass towards your dream, so you are more likely to achieve it. Second, you can't even begin to figure out what your number is without knowing exactly what kind of lifestyle that you aspire to. The most popular method used to estimate what someone needs saved for retirement uses the 4% rule. That's because when you retire, the rule is to take out no more than 4% of your retirement savings each year to ensure that you're not going to run out of money before the end of life. That assumes your savings need to last you about 25 years. If you take that into account, we can reverse engineer how much we need to have saved before we retire. We simply determine how much we want to take out yearly for living expenses and discretionary spending, and then we divide that number by 4%. For example, if you think you will need $100,000 per year or about $8,300 per month to live off of, then you divide that number by 0.04. That's the same as multiplying by 25. The math says you need 2.5 million saved for a 25-year retirement. Of course, that doesn't take into account any other streams of income you may have. If you have a second property that you expect to cash flow $2,000 per month throughout retirement, so you only need to take out $76,000 per year, now the amount you need in your retirement savings is $1.9 million. Alternatively, if you still do the work to get to 2.5 million, you will have $10,000 per month instead of $8,000 per month to live off of. And for many of us, that extra $2,000 per month might mean the difference between living frugally or luxuriously. It's the freedom to travel rather than to have to stay put. And don't forget to factor in Social Security or any pensions you may have. Just remember that you can't draw on Social Security until you're 62 years of age. And ideally you want to wait until 67. So if you're retiring earlier than that, those funds will not be available right away. Now, 401ks and IRAs, you can start withdrawing at age 59 and a half. Now, you might be wondering about inflation. We all know that $100,000 today will not give us the same buying power 10 or 20 years from now. You might be able to live on $8,000 per month early in retirement, but not later in retirement. Well, the good news is that 4% rule allows for an inflation adjustment each year. If inflation is 3% per year, then you can take out 3% more each year and still be fine because your retirement account is going to grow with that inflation as well. You'll take out $100,000 per year in year one and $103,000 in year two, and so on. Likewise, if you have a property that is cash flowing from long or short-term rentals, the rent or the ADR will go up over time as well. So instead of $2,000 per month in our example, a few years into retirement, you might be collecting $2,500 per month from your property. And that's the great thing about investments. They will continue to grow throughout your next act, assuming that you don't liquidate. That's why you don't stop investing just because you retire, especially if you retire early or you expect good longevity. Keep taking advantage of the law of compounding, which brings me to our financial freedom number. Now that we know how to find that number, let's shift gears and cover how to reach that number that we've targeted. It's probably a good time for me to point out that nothing I say here should be construed as financial advice. We're only talking general guidelines here. Always consult a certified financial professional if you want advice. Okay, so let's say you've been working hard and automatically saving for years so you have a good start to your nest egg. But you have some catching up to do. Most of us find that at some point, right? What next? There are really only 3 variables to manipulate: how much you earn, how much you save and invest, and how much time you have left. So I'm going to take time off the table as something you can manipulate, bringing this down to 2 variables. Of course, you can always delay retirement, work longer, and that'll give you more time to grow your nest egg. And assuming you stay healthy, your workplace isn't ageist, and AI doesn't replace you, maybe you can work indefinitely. But I'm going to assume for a minute that you are all ready to not just settle on a number, but settle on a date. The whole point of achieving financial freedom is that we want that freedom sooner than later, right? Again, you're going to have the freedom to keep working after that date if you want. But at that point, it'll be your choice. It's not going to be your chronological age or your retirement account that's making that decision for you. So sticking with our example, if you've decided that your number is $2.5 million and you want to achieve that in 5 years, then your next step will be figuring out the gap between where you are today and where you want to be in 5 years. How much do you have right now? How much do you need to grow that over 5 years? And don't let this step scare you. Honestly, taking a hard look at this gap is more than most people will take the time to do because it's a little scary. It's a little nerve-wracking, but it makes all the difference when it comes to achieving your financial freedom. What's the gap for you? Are you $1 million short? Are you $2 million short? Whatever the gap, don't get discouraged. You'll be amazed what you can accomplish in a few short years if you put your mind to it. And remember, you won't stop growing your nest egg when you reach your freedom number. Your investments will continue to work for you for decades. So let's get back to those two variables. You can manipulate how much you make and how much you save over the next 5 years. How much you make comes from your paycheck and any other income streams you have, such as rent, royalties, side gigs. How much of that income you save and grow depends on your budget and your investment strategy. Start by looking at your current income and outflow. Review your budget closely. Can you reduce your outflow by cutting down on expenses? Can you increase your income by asking for a raise at work and or adding a side gig? If you can get resourceful and reduce your expenses by, let's say, $10,000 per year, and you increase your income another $10,000 per year, that will give you an additional $20,000 per year to invest and grow over the next 5 years. And make sure you're maxing out your 401k and your IRA accounts. After the age of 50, you are allowed additional catch-up contributions to both of those. You can invest up to $30,000 per year over the next 5 years if you max out your 401k. You can invest $7,500 per year if you max out your IRA. And don't forget to take full advantage of any employer matching contributions you may have. This is essentially free money, so make sure you tap into that. Now, assuming